I'm Nan Simonsen. I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to share with you one of my favorite whole grain muffins. And it's a whole grain corn oat muffin. And it's easy to do. This is going to be fast. I'm playing around with ingredients. And so at the end, when I show you, sort of splice the videos and show you the finished product, I can evaluate what I think of my little change. But let me start right in with my introduction. I am Nan Simonsen, the author of Aging Powerfully. When I turned 70, I decided, you know what? I might have another 20 or 30 years ahead of me. I changed my diet almost 3 years ago to whole food, plant-based. By the time I was 70, I felt better than ever. And I thought, you know, with the right nourishment, we can go and go and go. And people, you can start that at 20, 30, 40, 50, and avoid some of the chronic illness that we see all around us in America. And whole foods, plant-based especially, has a lot to do with your health and your vitality and ongoing vigor and wellness. So these are great muffins, easy to do and delicious as a snack or with a soup or a stew, or I had them with a black bean stew and it was amazing. Okay, whole grain corn muffins. You've got the recipe. You'll be able to print it. And I'll just sort of summarize what I've done. I needed a cup of plant milk, and I used soy milk. I like Trader Joe's. There's another called is it West Soy or West Bray? But it's twice as expensive as this. At Trader Joe's, you can get an organic soy beverage, unsweetened, for, I think it's $1.79. And the ingredients are water, whole organic soybeans, period. If you look at a lot of plant milks, there are a lot of binders, emulsifiers, gums, and we want to stay as whole food, as close to nature as we can. So I like this brand. The more expensive brand has the same thing, nothing but soy and milk. So get what you can, get organic when you can. And I mixed a cup of that with a tablespoon of ground flaxseed. You can buy flaxseed ground, but the minute you open it and use any, put it in your refrigerator, and if you've got a big bag, put it in your freezer, and just have enough in your refrigerator for use for maybe a couple of weeks. I grind my own, and quite frankly, this is a mixture of what I use on a daily basis when I make a smoothie, and that is a mixture of chia seed. It's mainly flax, but I also put some chia and some hemp seed in it, but this works just fine. So I mixed a tablespoon and a half of the seed with the milk and let it kind of gel. And by the time I used it, it wasn't a gelled cup of liquid, but you could see that it was more viscous. As a matter of fact, an egg substitute for those of us who are whole food plant-based and use no eggs, dairy, meat, fish, poultry. A tablespoon of flaxseed and 3 tablespoons of water mixed together gets gummy enough to be used as an egg in a lot of ways. And you need to experiment though if you're doing it for baking, because baking can be a little bit more tricky. But anyway, then once that was set up, I added it to the bowl with a half a cup of applesauce and what else was it? Oh, and what I'm putting in now. The recipe calls for a half a cup of maple syrup. I didn't want to use that much maple syrup. So I like to use as a sweetener date paste, but I wasn't sure if date paste, which is a lot more, it's less liquid than maple syrup, because maple syrup's all liquid, whereas date paste is dates with water added to them. So I am using the date paste I had. I'm going to be doing another video in a couple of minutes showing you how to make date paste, and I'll be posting that pretty soon. And the value of date paste is it's very sweet, it's almost caramely, but it's whole food. It's dates soaked and then whirled up in the blender to become a paste that's very sweet. And I use it in any recipe, almost any. Again, baking can be tricky, and it's helpful to have some parameters like the recipe calling for date paste. But that's why I'm trying this. This calls for maple syrup. I want to use more date paste. Someday I'm going to try the entire recipe with date paste and no maple syrup at all, because date paste is healthier. Dates actually have potassium, they have lots of fiber, they have nutrients. So I'm going to add the half date paste, half maple syrup to this. And so what do I have in here? Cup of milk. And the recipe calls for almond milk or soy milk. I like soy because 1 cup is 9 grams of protein. That's about the amount of protein in a cup of dairy milk, but I don't eat dairy. And I sort of stay away from the hormones in dairy and the casomorphins and the animal protein. Plant protein's softer on our body. It's kind of a low octane fuel that feeds us beautifully, as opposed to hyper high octane, which animal protein can be, and it can be really hard on our bodies. Okay, so, and then I had that mixture, my applesauce, and now the, that's cute, a bubble on the maple syrup. And now the half maple syrup and half date paste. And to that, I'm adding a combination of, this is cornmeal. I just got medium grade, or you can get the finer grade. By grade, we mean coarseness. Cornmeal, whole grain, organic corn. So they just ground up organic corn, and that's what we got. And this is oat flour. I had organic whole rolled oats and just ground those up, and that's oat flour. I could have used garbanzo flour, I could have used whole wheat flour, but I can't have gluten, so I don't do any wheat flour, but a whole grain wheat flour would have been fine as well, a little bit heavier. And I mixed them together with a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and I'm going to mix them until they are well blended. I'm not going to whip them, but just until they're well blended. I love this spatula, and did I just show you the other one like it? This one. They're by a company called Tovolo, T-O-V-O-L, Tovoli or Tovolo, I get it on Amazon, and they're silicone, firm on the inside, but soft enough on the outside to act as a very effective spatula. And yet when you scrape, and yet, because they're firm on the inside, you can also use them to mix. And I love this color, so I always get this color. Okay, so already this is blended beautifully. I can see that it's not quite bubbly, but whenever you have baking soda and baking powder with a liquid, you'll start getting that kind of volume, kind of bubbly volume. Okay, then on this plate, I have 1 cup of sweet corn, and I simply poured a cup of corn out of sweet organic corn. Why organic? Because I know if it's organic, it's not sprayed with glyphosate, it's not GMO, it's not, which means then that it can be sprayed with an herbicide and still survive, and that's why they do that. They can just spray entire fields. And I know that it is more likely to have, for fertilizers, an organic fertilizer as opposed to basically processed nitrogen. And I like that. It's friendlier on my body and my microbiome. All right, so I laid that out earlier to defrost, mixing this in. Yeah, the dough now is, I can see that it's kind of fluffy. And I don't want to break out. I don't want to overdo it because I don't want all those bubbles to dissipate. Okay, that's good enough. So we have this wonderful corn, oat, whole grain mixture that's slightly sweet. There was a little bit of salt in it as well. You don't have to add the salt. A lot of people avoid salt, and I think it's a great idea. I use a little bit. And I'll use my spatula again. And I'm going to get 12 muffins out of this. And of course, I have no idea when I put this in if it's going to come out exactly 12 with the volume I'm using. But we'll see. And I preheated my oven. I have my conventional oven, and I have something called a Breville oven, smart air oven. Love it because it's like a big toaster oven that toasts, that bakes and broils and roasts and dehydrates and air fries. So a lot of times, because I batch cook, I'll have my potatoes pre-cooked, both sweet potatoes and conventional potatoes, whether they're the waxy ones or the like russets, and make a whole batch of those at the beginning of the week. And all through the week, that becomes my starch base. Yes, I eat lots of starch. And I've never had such an easy time being able to maintain a weight that is exactly what I want, and yet still eat huge amounts of really satisfying food. And that's where a starch-based diet comes in. And if you're eating plant-based, you're getting a lot of starches, which is the best thing you can do for your microbiome. So now I'm not going to eat 4 and 5 of these things just because it's starch-based and whole food, because this is more processed than what I would eat a lot of, which is food as close to nature as possible, starting out with the greens, and then the more starchy vegetables, and then the fruits and herbs, and then you kind of go up the calorie density ladder to grains and whole grains and whole legumes, lots and lots of those. And then you can get some of these more processed, combined, more broken down foods, like the grains here are ground. And so you can eat a lot more of these much more quickly than you would if you were just eating corn unground or oats unground. So these are still something that you don't pound down just because they're whole food, but you can have them and it nourishes you, and it makes a really good filler to a meal. A bowl of soup or a salad and a warm muffin. Oh, it's marvelous. Okay, I think, gosh, I'm going to be able to put all of this in. And, well, I knew I would, but I wasn't sure that. See, I'm kind of making a mess. Oh, I should have told you. This is a silicone muffin pan. So, no, I didn't grease it. That's the other thing I don't do. I eat things that are fatty, like avocado and olives and seeds and nuts, but I don't add oil to my foods. Oil is also processed, and if you're getting your oil from your foods, you don't have to add something that's it's about 120 or 30 calories per tablespoon, or 4,000 calories a pound, when it really doesn't matter. I've made stews with and stews without oil, and nobody could tell the difference. And so, why add the oil? Okay, I think we're done. All right, let me just get a little of this off of the silicone, although it doesn't matter. I'm going to tamp it down to kind of get a little bit even. And then I'm going to put it in my Breville oven rather than my big oven, which takes a lot longer to heat, a lot longer to cool down. I can put this in my Breville, which took minutes to heat up. Okay. I'm setting it for 20 minutes. I'll test it, and then I'll get back to you and make sure it's on. It is. And I'll show you what I have. In the meantime, while that's cooking, I'm going to do another video on date paste, and then another one on 2 sauces that I couldn't live without. One a salad dressing, and the other a what we call vegan sour cream using silken tofu. Fabulous, high protein, has fiber, low fat, and absolutely delicious. So I'll be back with you. Bye. The muffins came out in 20 minutes. They were finished as the recipe said. In 20 minutes, I put in a toothpick. This is a silicone muffin pan. As I said, it was not oiled. I let them cool somewhat, and look how easily they're coming out. When you bake, you want to let your baked goods cool on a rack. Oh, look at that. That was easy. Because by doing that, they won't get too wet on the inside. I've not done it this way before. I usually just trim around the edges with a dull knife. And look, they're just popping right out. I didn't have to do that. This dark part here will come out. That was where I kind of made a little bit of a mess. So I'll soak that, and let me show you something I wanted to talk to you about. I'm brewing a cup of tea so that I can taste my muffin, and I want to cut it in half to show you what it looks like. Remember, there's whole corn in it. A couple of pieces of corn. They're whole, so I can show you. Look, doesn't that look lovely? It's a nice grain. It looks moist enough, so yes, I will do a repeat of the date paste with the maple syrup. And actually, I think the next time I will simply use all date paste. I would feel better about that. The date paste has magnesium, potassium, B vitamins, especially B6, and it's much healthier than any sweetener I could use. Before I have my cup of tea and a piece of muffin, I want to show you why I have this out. This recipe called for applesauce, and I don't eat applesauce as a rule. I'd rather have an apple, but I use it for cooking. So this is called a super cube, and they're called super cubes, S-O-U-P-E-R-C-U-B-E-S. Got them on Amazon. This one is a half a cup, and it's marked inside for a quarter of a cup, 125 mils, which is a half, or 50 mils, which is a quarter. And what is this? 2, 4, 6 1/2 cup containers. It's the 1 cup size that's marked inside for a half a cup, so 1 cup full, half a cup partially full, and then there's 2 cup ones. Now, what's the value of this? Let me show you. I bought a big jar, well, the size jar that was being sold at Trader Joe's, but you can get them at regular markets, at standard markets. I use organic apple. Apples are heavily sprayed, and what am I going to do with it? So I put the half cup measurements of the applesauce in each of those, and this is how I keep them in the freezer. Labeled 1/2 cup applesauce unsweetened with the date, And when I was ready for this, I simply pulled one out, put it in a bowl and defrosted, in a half an hour. And I have enough applesauce for this recipe 3 times over, or any other recipe. So just wanted to mention that. I know some of you don't like to store anything in plastic. You could put them in glass containers, but how many glass containers can we have? And those are Ziploc, non-PBA, but who knows what else is in there, freezer containers. And I have a number of bags with different things in it. I have a, some sauces in there, my date paste. Oh, while this was cooking, I made date paste. And this is, well, here. This is the date paste, so you'll want to look for that video. I'm not sure which one I'm going to post first, but that's my date paste. I'm using it for a pudding at the chocolate pudding on, well, I'm going to be on Chef AJ's show this coming Thursday. It will be May 20th, 2021. And I'm going to make a delectable chocolate pudding, guilt-free, no sugar. And I'm going to, the next day, have a little birthday party for my daughter and make a sweet potato bean brownie recipe. And they're fabulous. I've had them before. And that uses date paste as well. So rather than freezing this, because I made used a pound of dates, and I think next time I'll do 1.5 pounds so I can get a lot of the half-cup container portions in the freezer, because this is going to all go probably this week in my 2 recipes. I hope you're having a great day. I'm going to see what this tastes like. That's so good. Help me spread the word. Let people know whole food, plant-based is the way to go. Or as much whole food, fruits, vegetables, beans, grains, tubers, seeds and nuts, and spices and herbs. As much as you can eat is the amount that your body will thrive on. And you'll get all the protein you need just by eating whole foods, enough to keep your body weight up. You'll get all the protein you need. Anyway, have a great day, because I know I'm going to. Bye-bye.